This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of The Hub. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. Today I want to share two inspiring stories with you, with all of you. They're about people battling great odds and achieving the impossible. My first guest is Luke Grenfell-Shaw, a man with incredible willpower and wheel power. He undertook a mammoth 30,000 kilometer cycling challenge around the world after being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. It all started 4 years ago. 24-year-old British marathon runner Luke Grenfell-Shaw felt a persistent ache in his left shoulder. Doctors told him he had cancer, a very rare and aggressive sarcoma. The treatment was painful, yet Luke was determined to live to the fullest while undergoing chemotherapy. Born into a loving and supportive family, the young athlete slowly pulled through and found the strength to continue his adventures. Halfway through the chemotherapy, he finished the Bristol half marathon in 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 8 seconds. And he cast his eyes farther away. He launched the Bristol to Beijing from Bristol, England, all the way to Beijing, China, to raise awareness about cancer. The journey was around 30,000 kilometers, and he crossed nearly 30 countries and regions through all kinds of landscape and weather, from snowfield to grassland. During this odyssey, cancer patients from other countries joined him, telling the world that they can live with this condition. It was a school of hard knocks, but Luke has learned to live for today and let the future take care of itself. Luke, welcome to the Hub on CGTN. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
No, it's great to have you, actually. First and foremost, I want to ask you about your health. I mean, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And how is your body doing, really?
Well, to be honest, it's a miracle that I'm alive right now. So I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 4 years ago. And to be honest, I really didn't think I would see the end of the year. It was very serious. It was very aggressive. It was a very rare form of cancer. But I'm still alive today. You know, I'm fit, I'm well, I have scans, but I'm in some of the best shape of my life. You know, I'm cycling, I'm running, and yeah, just super happy to be alive and make the most of living.
That's awesome, my friend. That's awesome. So far, no symptoms, no major symptoms?
Correct. So across the cycle ride that I've been doing over the last 2.5 years, I've had to have scans in Romania, in Georgia, in Kazakhstan, in India. And every time I've had a scan, I just don't know if I'm going to be told my cancer has come back. And the chances are is that at some point it will. And I'm really hoping that I kind of get to finish my cycle trip before my cancer catches up with me. But up till now, I'm still well, I'm still healthy, and my cancer's in a stable condition.
That's great news, Luke. But we all know that you yourself mentioned 4 years ago, when you were just 24, you were diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and the primary tumor had spread to your lungs, right? And then what happened afterwards? I assume lots of chemotherapy, lots of radio-based therapies. It must have been so tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not see it coming. I was the fittest, healthiest 24-year-old you would have met. And although I'd had this ache in my shoulder for several months, of course, the last thing I would have thought about was it being cancer. And eventually, when I went to see the doctor and they said, you've got a big problem, it was the most unexpected thing. And like my whole world fell apart, it disintegrated, because here was me, 24 years old, thinking I'm going to be climbing the career ladder, working towards a good position, a house, a family, all these things. And then you're told it's going to be stripped away, and none of that's possible. And it was the most devastating day of my life. I went home and I just cried into the sofa. It was awful. I'd basically been told I was going to die in a few months. And that's one of the worst things that you can ever hear.
Yeah, of course. So I can only imagine. Did the doctor say about your 5-year survival rate?
Let's just say it would have been incredibly depressing to talk about it. I looked at the statistics and, let's just say it looked like this. But what I realized in how can I be positive in this situation? I realized that I wanted to do everything I could to put myself in that tiny percentage of people who are going to survive. So I wanted to do everything I could to help myself in this situation. And so when I was in hospital having chemotherapy, I got my bicycle in with me. I was cycling in hospital. 2/3 of the way through my chemotherapy, I did a half marathon, so like 21 kilometers, and I managed to run that in 80 minutes, which it was the most surprising thing ever. And for me, this is an example of what you can do with cancer, and that's really what my message is about. It's about showing what is possible with cancer, that you can be active, you can help yourself, and you can live your dreams.
Let's talk about your cycling journey. You set out to cycle across the world, or much of the world. You've cycled across 29 countries so far, traveled well over just under 30,000 kilometers within the past 2.5 years. How did you come up with the plan, and why did you intend to set Beijing as your final destination?
So on the day that I was diagnosed with cancer, there was one tiny bit of hope, one kind of dream that I had in my mind. And I just knew deep down that if I was somehow able to get through my treatment, if I was somehow still able to be alive, then I wanted to cycle from Bristol to Beijing. And Bristol is where I grew up. That's my hometown. Why Beijing? Why China? Well, for me, it's a few different reasons. I think China is one of the most interesting, fascinating, culturally rich countries on earth. Furthermore, it's going to be such an important country to understand in the 21st century. And I want to understand it for myself, because there's all sorts of media that's out there that gives a very, one-sided impression of life in China. And I was very interested in both the old Silk Roads and the new Silk Roads. So the Belt and Road Initiative, the new economic Silk Road that, of course, China is leading and spearheading. And I really wanted to sort of follow these two roads, the old Silk Roads and the new Silk Roads. And that meant that the natural destination was Beijing.
And then this time around, apparently you couldn't go due to COVID, among other things. Do you want to go there one day?
Oh, absolutely. I am so excited, so they're kind of impatiently waiting for the opportunity to finish my cycle rides. And I'm really hoping that soon I'm going to be able to finish my journey cycling through China.
But let's talk about your journey, your previous journey from Bristol to almost Beijing. What was it like? Did you cycle through the whole thing, or you were changing means of transportation every now and then, but bicycled through much of the way?
So I cycled the whole way.
Wow.
But it was also on a very special bike, because it was on a tandem bike, so a two-person bike, and I invited people to join me on the trip. So I shared the journey with a schoolboy from Bukhara in Uzbekistan. I cycled with a 17-year-old guy in India who had been diagnosed with cancer himself, hadn't been on the bike for 2.5 years, and we cycled halfway across India together. So this was an extraordinary trip done at an extraordinary time because I did it throughout the pandemic. And so I had a unique perspective on how so many different countries were responding to the pandemic.
I mean, what were some of the more unforgettable persons or places that you have encountered throughout the way? I assume there are many, 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 right?
There are. One person who really sticks in my mind was a guy that I met in Ukraine, in Mariupol. He was a pastor, a guy called Gennady Mohnenko, and he basically had set up an orphanage for street children. It was the largest orphanage in the former Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And he basically would take children off the streets who had like drug problems, alcohol problems, and he would take them into his orphanage. But that wasn't enough for Gennady, because he also adopted 35 of these children into his own family. So he was one of the most remarkable people that I met on this journey, and one of the most inspirational.
I mean, you've traversed through different terrains, landscape, and the weather conditions. Some days are tougher than others, I assume. What was the tougher ones compared to all others?
So I cycled across the Pamir Highway that goes between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan.
Yeah.
And most of it is above 4,000 meters. And most of it is on like a gravel road. So there's altitude, there are mountains, the road is very bumpy, it's very slow. Physically, that was super tough, because I'm like going up a hill as hard as I can at slower than walking pace, and I'm just like gasping for air. And you think, is this ever going to end? But on the flip side, it's like the most beautiful place in the world. You've got blue skies, you've got mountains, you've just got these incredible vistas and lakes. And so that was a bit of a balm to the pain that I was experiencing.
But where did you stay throughout the journey? It took 2.5 years. What was accommodation like? I guess you had to improvise, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything from like staying in a bus shelter to pitching my tent by the side of the River Danube in Austria.
Wow.
I was taken in by a family in Uzbekistan, and we went swimming at midnight in an irrigation canal, and we were just like watching the stars. I've stayed with ambassadors. I've stayed with like the most humble farmers in Kazakhstan. I've basically experienced the whole range from being a pauper to a prince. And I think that's what's really special about this ride, is that it gives you was given me such variety, such experiences, not just good experiences. Like there have been very few 5-star hotel experiences, but it's been an absolute range, and meeting so many different people along the way.
What about the food along the way?
I don't know where to start with that. So many cuisines, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to when I get to China. The food, what I've had, whether it's like Szechuan cuisine, like there's a spicy sort of braised fish, like duban yu, is that right?
Douban yu.
Like
very close.
Thank you. Yeah. And then I hear it in Beijing, there's jianbing, these like amazing fried pancakes. So like, yeah. I'm really excited for the food when I come to China. But, in a place like Georgia, you've got these incredible pizza-like things called hachapuri. Right. And they are oval pizzas with a whole load of melted cheese in the center, and you can break an egg on the top. And it's like the most calorific, but best food for cycling long distances. And then in India, you've got some just incredible variety, incredible flavors. Every street dish will have about 15 different components that are just thrown together in front of your eyes.
But along the way, what are you doing to make sure, number one, hygiene-wise, you're good with the food there, the street food, the snacks, and number two, you want to prevent, your conditions from getting worse. For example, coronavirus has been with us throughout the past 3 years.
Yeah, these are some great questions. So regards to hygiene, my attitude is that if I throw myself in at the deep end, then my stomach will toughen up. And generally that's worked pretty well. The one country that got the better of me was India. I did get the infamous Delhi belly.
Wow.
I had a very
Stomach issue, huh?
torrid afternoon, cycling along, basically feeling like there was a volcano in my stomach, which wasn't the most pleasant experience. And then, of course, when it comes to my health, you're right that I have to I need to be mindful of it. But for me, the most important thing is that I'm being active. And I know that exercise is really important in keeping my body healthy. It's one of the most effective things you can do to combat cancer, in terms of beyond the chemotherapy and radiotherapy, what you can do to keep your body strong and resilient, increase the efficacy of the chemo. So for me, just cycling my bike every day was a really big step in the right direction of living a healthy life.
Well, Luke, you once said the expedition has been an expression of a mindset. Why is that? And what do you want to do in the future, in the coming months and years, and hopefully decades?
So this expedition is all about showing that you can live with cancer. And I have a word for myself and other people with cancer, and I call myself a can liver. And that is in contrast to the word or the phrase cancer survivor, which to me doesn't sum up what it is to have cancer. Because for me to have cancer, it means that there are challenges, whether that's chemotherapy, there are uncertainties, that might be, I don't know how long I'm going to live. But then there's also a positive side to this, that you can live with cancer. You can go out and achieve your dreams. And I think in a lot of countries that I pass through, there is a lot of stigma attached to having cancer. And not just cancer, but lots of different types of diseases. And one of the things I'm trying to do is show, look, I've had cancer, I've got cancer, and what I'm doing is possible. So let's challenge people around the world to reconsider and rethink what they can do with cancer. And so this is a mission that I'm continuing, hopefully by reaching Beijing. That is what my number one hope and priority right now is somehow I can carry on my ride through China to reach Beijing. I'm writing a book, I'm making a documentary, and I'm hoping that this can continue to spread the message. And I think the most important thing that I've learned though is the importance of today being enough and not saying my life is going to be good in a year or 10 years. Today has to be enjoyable and satisfying and fulfilling. And that's how I try and live. Make each day count and live your dream on each day.
To make each day count, Luke Grenfell-Shaw, thank you so much for sharing with us your inspiring and encouraging stories over there. Stay strong, stay fit, and stay healthy, okay? You take care of yourself.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on our show.